Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. On the battlefield, a capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat. As the first light of dawn broke across the arid plains bordering the Strait of Hormuz, a fierce combined arms assault began that would eliminate one of Iran's final defensive barriers. Iranian forces had constructed a sprawling, heavily fortified trench network stretching nearly 3 kilometers along a strategic ridgeline just inland from the coast. These deep, interconnected trenches were reinforced with concrete firing positions, underground bunkers, sandbag walls, and multiple heavy weapon emplacements. From this line, Iranian troops had been launching rockets and directing artillery fire against ships transiting the strait. The U.S. Army received a direct order: destroy the entire trench system and clear every position using a deadly combination of AH-64 Apache attack helicopters and ground infantry. This would be close, brutal, and methodical work. Helicopter gunships providing overwhelming firepower from above, while infantry soldiers advanced trench by trench in some of the toughest close-quarters fighting of the entire campaign. At Forward Operating Base Eagle, located 45 kilometers from the target area, the mission briefing began at 0430 hours. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Kane of the 1st Infantry Division stood in front of a large digital terrain table inside a reinforced command tent. The glowing map displayed every detail of the Iranian defensive line: the long zigzag trenches, elevated machine gun nests, underground command bunkers, ammunition storage caves, and the network of supply trails leading back toward the Iranian mainland. Colonel Kane addressed his company commanders and the Apache squadron leaders with calm authority. The Apaches will lead with rockets and chain guns to suppress and destroy the heaviest positions. Infantry companies will advance in coordinated sections, clearing each trench segment systematically. We support each other at every step. No position is left uncleared. This line must fall completely before morning. He assigned specific sectors to each infantry company, designated danger close and engaging zones for the helicopters, outlined medical evacuation procedures, and reviewed communication agreements. Every leader listened with a total focus, asking precise questions about enemy strength estimates and resupply timelines before the briefing ended. Preparation began immediately and moved with disciplined urgency. In the vehicle marshalling area, infantry soldiers conducted final weapons checks. They loaded M4 carbines with fresh 5.56 millimeter magazines, attached M320 grenade launchers, and packed breaching charges, fragmentation grenades, and white phosphorus smoke rounds. Squad automatic weapon teams carefully inspected their M249 light machine guns and linked long belts of ammunition. Anti-tank specialists mounted tow missile systems on up-armored Humvees and verified the guidance units. Platoon medics restocked trauma kits with tourniquets, chest seals, and quick-clot bandages. Every soldier adjusted body armor plates, tested night vision devices, and made sure hydration packs were full, knowing the fight could last several hours in the rising heat. On the helicopter flight line, ground crews worked feverishly around the AH-64 Apache attack helicopters. Armorers loaded the 30mm chain gun with high explosive rounds, attached full Hydra 70 rocket pods under the stub wings, and mounted AGM-114 Hellfire missiles on the rail launchers. Fuel trucks filled the tanks to capacity, while maintenance teams ran final diagnostics on the helicopter's advanced FLIR targeting system, laser designators, and helmet-mounted cueing systems. Pilots and co-pilots climbed into their cockpits, powered up the glass displays, and completed pre-flight checklists. Each Apache was cleared for immediate combat operations and stood ready on the ramp like a coiled predator. At 0530 hours, the assault commenced. 4 AH-64 Apaches lifted off in tight formation, flying nap of the earth to avoid early detection. As they neared the trench line, the pilots activated their targeting systems. Rockets streaked from the pods in rapid salvos, slamming into elevated machine gun nests and sending plumes of fire and sand into the sky. The 30mm chain guns opened up with a deep, rhythmic thud, raking the trench edges and suppressing Iranian defenders who attempted to return fire. The Apaches circled continuously overhead, providing real-time intelligence to the ground forces and engaging any threat the moment it appeared. On the ground, the infantry companies began their advance. Up-armored Humvees moved forward first, laying down heavy suppressive fire with .56 caliber machine guns. Soldiers dismounted in disciplined fire teams and pushed toward the outer trench line under the protective umbrella of the Apache gunships. The first trench was reached amid heavy enemy resistance. Grenades were tossed into firing positions, followed by soldiers dropping into the trenches themselves, while at close-quarters combat erupted as they cleared bunker after bunker using rifle fire, flashbang grenades, and room-clearing tactics. One squad discovered a large underground ammunition cache and quickly secured it to prevent detonation. The coordination between air and ground forces was exceptional. When infantry encountered a stubborn concrete bunker complex that resisted initial assaults, a ground commander called for Apache support. An Apache pilot locked onto the target with a laser designator and fired a single Hellfire missile. The bunker disappeared in a thunderous explosion. Another Apache used its chain gun to pin down a group of Iranian soldiers attempting a flanking maneuver, giving the infantry time to reposition and neutralize the threat. As the sun rose higher and temperatures climbed, the infantry continued pressing forward trench by trench. Soldiers moved methodically through the zigzag lines, clearing each segment before signaling the next team to advance. Engineers followed closely behind, marking cleared areas with colored tape and disabling booby traps and unexploded ordnance. Captured Iranian weapons and documents were collected and moved to a central holding point. By 8 o'clock hours, more than half the trench network was under U.S. control. The Apaches never left the fight. They rotated through firing runs, expended their rocket loads, returned briefly to a forward arming and refueling point for quick rearming, and immediately returned to the battlefield. Their presence overhead prevented Iranian reinforcements from reaching the area and kept enemy heads down while the infantry completed the dangerous work inside the trenches. By 10:30 hours, the final sections of the trench line were cleared. The last remaining Iranian defenders either surrendered or fled toward the rear. The entire 3-kilometer defensive network that had threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz now lay silent and broken under American control. Destroyed rocket launchers, shattered bunkers, and abandoned heavy weapons littered the battlefield. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Kane walked through the cleared trenches, observing the results of the hard fighting. He stopped at the highest point of the ridgeline and looked out toward the glittering waters of the Strait of Hormuz. He keyed his radio and addressed his command team with quiet pride. All trenches secured, enemy positions completely neutralized, the coastal approach is now open. You did outstanding work today, soldiers. The swift destruction of this trench network sent fresh panic through Iranian high command. Their last major defensive barrier protecting approaches to the strait had been shattered in a single morning. Rocket and artillery attacks against commercial shipping dropped dramatically as surviving units withdrew in confusion. On the ground, the infantry units immediately began consolidating their hard-won gains. They established strong defensive perimeters along the captured ridgeline, set up observation posts with clear fields of fire, and prepared positions for follow-on artillery and reinforcements. Medical teams continued treating wounded soldiers, while Apache helicopters maintained vigilant orbits overhead. As the afternoon heat settled over the plains, the soldiers who had fought through the trenches stood guard over the newly secured territory. Their uniforms were caked in dust and sweat, their faces marked by the intensity of close combat, yet they carried themselves with the quiet confidence of troops who had just accomplished a difficult and dangerous mission with skill and determination. Later that day, Lieutenant Colonel Kane addressed the entire task force over the command network. You advanced under fire, cleared every trench with Apache support, and took ground the enemy believed was impregnable. Because of your courage and professionalism today, the Strait of Hormuz is significantly safer. Oil tankers are preparing to move again. The mission continues, but this battlefield now belongs to the U.S. Army. In the distance, the first signs of renewed maritime traffic appeared on the horizon as escorted oil tankers began their cautious transit through the strait, their passage now protected by the soldiers and helicopters that had just cleared Iran's final trench defense near Hormuz. The U.S. Army's AH-64 attack helicopters and infantry units had delivered a powerful and decisive blow. What Iran had built as a formidable defensive wall was reduced to empty sand, broken concrete, and silence. Another critical obstacle removed on the long road to restoring complete freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz.